welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to be going over part 4 of the story about the guy who dissed his wife on the honeymoon after catching her making out with another chick. And you guys all know the backstory here, so I need to go into it all over again. Don't need to waste your time. But where we left off, in the part 3 a couple hours ago, is where he was going to start on about the situation with his dad and his mother. And his dad, well, we're going to see what happens with regard to the dad finding out if the mother was a big giant cheater. So I'm going to just jump into where I left off. He continues, I told my father I thought my mother just wanted her children happily married and raise her grandchildren. Anything that got in the way of that fantasy, like Jill and Amy's infidelity, should be ignored and excused. She wanted us to reconcile with our wives because she's afraid of losing her children and grandchildren. I call bull crap on that, but man, it isn't just because she wants to be a grandma or grandma wants everything to be picture perfect with the grandkids and all that for the public. No, her attitude about sex and cheating, all that, says everything to me. I've done too many videos on the other channels that back that up. If the mother's supporting the cheating wife or girlfriend or whatever, because guess what? She was the same way, or is the same way. We shall see. My father told me he overheard a conversation between Jill and my mother. Jill is thinking about returning with the baby to the Caribbean after the baby is born. My father said that my mother went nuts on Jill. She wants Jill and her grandson right here with her. My mother told Jill she does not have my mother's permission to take her grandson away to live in the Caribbean. I told my father that's why my mother is so irrational about me and Jill and Amy and Alex getting back together. She's just afraid of losing her grandchildren. Let's just say there is some truth to that, but there's still more going on here. My father is not so sure. I asked if he noticed any suspicious behavior by my mother. He said he's suspicious now of everything my mother does. He says he looked at her phone. There's nothing there. No suspicious texts, emails, or phone numbers. No social media apps. Maybe she has another phone. They use the same computer. Nothing there. I said Mom used to keep a diary. Did Dad look at that? My father says he hasn't seen her write in her diary for a while. My mother has kept a diary since she was 12 years old. She writes in notebooks. At the beginning of every year, she starts a new notebook. There should be years of notebooks somewhere. He looked, but they disappeared. Oh, how interesting. My mother used to keep them in a closet in boxes that she taped shut. Not there anymore. My father can't find them. How interesting. My father wants Amy and me to get the DNA test to see if we are his kids. I told him I'm resending my DNA to make sure the prior test is accurate. Get a DNA kit and we'll get the DNA compared to with mine. And he did. I'm my father's biological son. Well, that's good to hear, my man. Is my DNA the same as my fraternal twin Amy's? No, my father did some research on fraternal twins and paternity. Amy and I come from 2 different eggs. 2 different eggs can be fertilized by 2 different men. Okay. Okay. I didn't know that. One estimate is that 1 in 400 human fraternal twins do not have the same father. What the hell? Is your mom a cat? That's what the vet told me one time, that a mama cat can go around and get plowed by the Chad and Tyrone male kitties in the neighborhood. And like the movie Twins with Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, like it had many fathers for the different, you get the point. Okay. It's fairly common in non-human mammals. I can be my father's son, and Amy could be be some other man's daughter, even though we were both born at the same time. Okay, any doctors out there can confirm this, because this seems crazy to me, but okay. My mother doesn't even have to have sex with 2 men on the same day, just in the same reproductive cycle. My father wants my sister's DNA tested. Again, is your mom a cat? My sister is refusing to do a prenatal DNA test, even though Alex is insisting she do that. She's not backing down, huh? Amy's not going to get a DNA test for herself just because my father wants her to, especially since it's meant to determine if she's my father's daughter. They can't force Amy to do a DNA test for herself or the unborn daughter. A judge can, but it's unlikely a judge will tell Amy she has to get tested just because our father is suspicious about paternity 25 years later. Yeah, I don't see that happening unless you do some trick to get, her DNA. She ain't giving it up. Since the son is Alex's, it's also unlikely that a judge will order a prenatal DNA test for her daughter. Besides, neither wants to wait for a judge. Amy doesn't know that Alex has had their son tested, and he's Alex's son. Alex believes Amy knows or strongly suspects that Alex is not the father of the daughter of Amy's pregnant with. The pregnancy was a surprise, not something they planned. Actually, they planned not to have another baby for 2 years. The daughter is due in June. Again, back to the interesting timing when she went down to the Caribbean in September. Let's do the math here. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. 9 months. 9 months after she was down there in September on the mission to bring Jill home. I don't believe in coincidences. Seriously. Do the math. In September, when the baby was conceived, Amy spent a week with Jill being amazed by all the people effing on the beach. What'd I say? Alex, my uncle, my father, and I sat down to figure out how to get Amy to do the paternal test for both her and the baby who's coming. Who owns Alex's house? Alex bought the place while Amy was away at college before they were married. But Alex put Amy's name on the deed after they were married. Well, that sucks. Does Amy know that? Alex said, who knows what Amy knows? Alex said he's going to tell Amy she and Jill have to move out. If they refuse, Alex will move all the money out of their joint account and cancel the credit cards Amy is using. Alex needs to move the money out of his share of the money in the joint account immediately. Not next week or later, right now. She can clear that thing out and he's toast. And cancel the cards that she could use that he has to pay for. If she does a DNA test and it's his daughter, Alex can also reverse all of that. Alex called Amy, and Amy said that she was so glad to hear from him. Is Alex coming home? Yes, but after Amy leaves. She has to leave immediately. The house belongs to Alex, and he's evicting Amy and Jill. Good luck with that one. Why is he doing that? Amy won't take a DNA test because her children aren't Alex's. If they were, Amy would be happy to prove it to Alex. She has to leave and take Jill with her. She has until the end of the day to pick up and leave. There may be some laws against that. If she's willing to get DNA tests for herself and for the unborn child, they can stay. If the daughter is really Alex's, Amy said she understands why Alex wants a DNA test for her son and unborn daughter. Why for Amy too? Her DNA has nothing to do with Alex being the father of her children. Alex told her just to get the test done. Amy says she's not leaving her house and she's not getting the DNA test. It's insulting. She gets angry every time he asks. Alex has to get over his insanity and come home to his family. Man, she is not budging from her story at all. Man, stubborn. Alex hung up on her. He went to the bank, opened up an account, and transferred all the funds from the joint account to his new account. He then canceled the credit cards Amy used. Well, that'll get her attention. Amy called Alex the next morning. Her credit cards were declined at the grocery store. The bank account is empty. She needed formula and diapers for the baby. Jill had to pay. A court will have a problem with that. If she can't provide for her children, the court's going to have a problem with that. What is going on? Alex told her to get the DNA test for herself and for the baby she's carrying. She doesn't have to worry about the son. Why? Alex told Amy she asked too many questions. Schedule a prenatal test for the daughter. Amy's father will come by and take the swab of her DNA. Amy asked if Alex will get her credit cards back and put the money in the account. Alex replied that when the prenatal test is scheduled, he'll give Amy money. If the daughter is his, they can work out something more permanent. He will take care of his kids. If the daughter is his kid, which I seriously doubt, then he, of course, will be taking care of that child and should. But if it's not his kid, not his problem. My father got his swab from Amy. Amy had the prenatal test done. The girl Amy is pregnant with is not Alex's daughter. Big freaking surprise there. Amy is not my father's daughter either. I'm not surprised, guys. Both men are devastated. It is no longer a question of what our wives did before we were married. They've all been unfaithful after they got married. My uncle told my father and Alex to get STD tests. I got an STD test after I got back from the Caribbean. I'm clear. Well, I'm going to say I'm very sorry for you, Alex, and your dad. I mean, that's terrible. And this explains everything. Anybody out there single want to get married still? My father received the results that my sister is not his daughter in the morning on December 26th. Oh, Merry Christmas, Dad. I had bad news over Christmas, too. My poor cat got sick and I had to take her to the hospital. Kidney failure. And she's been out of the hospital and she's on a lot of treatment. This is manageable for a while, so I didn't exactly have the best Christmas either. And my father told my mother they had to talk. He wanted me there as a witness, or to protect my mother from him, or to help him pack, whatever. I met them at their place, the last place in the universe I wanted to be. My father asked where my mother's diaries were. My mother asked why he wanted to see her diaries. My father said he wants to read them. My mother told him that the diaries were private. No one has ever read them. No one is ever going to read them. Why the sudden interest in her diaries? He wants to see who my mother has been cheating on him with. I'm sure that went over well. My mother has always had a sort of ruddy complexion. She always looks flushed. She turned beet red and stared at my dad. She got up and told us this is ridiculous. She's not going to be a part of this nonsense. She looked at me and asked why I'm indulging my father in this idiocy. My father yelled at her to sit down. Good for him. It's probably the first time he's yelled at her ever. She did. He asked her again where her diaries were. My mother started crying and told my father he's scaring her. The waterworks are unleashed. She asked me, why didn't I intervene? I said, Mom, you cheat on Dad. Dad wants your diaries. You should probably let him read them. She looked back and forth between my father and me. My mother realized that wasn't going away. She fell on her side of the sofa, tucked into her knees, put her hands over her face, sobbing. Oh, F you, Mom. My father said, diaries. Where did you hide them? My mother says she didn't hide them. She moved them. That's hiding them. Potato, potato. They are under Jill's and Amy's beds in their old bedroom. Oh, the den of sin there. They're labeled by year. My father asked me to find the diary for 1998, the year my sister and I were conceived. Oh my God. I was 20 years old then. My father gave my mother the DNA test showing my sister is not his child. I found the 1998 notebook and gave it to him. He started to read it at the beginning. My mother looked over the DNA test and asked me to explain. I told her the test shows my sister is not my father's biological daughter. My mother said that's impossible. I just looked at my dad. I explained that he is my biological father, but not Amy's. How is that possible? I explained that she got pregnant by my father and by another man. 2 eggs impregnated by 2 different men during the same period of time. I still have a hard time with this, but if that's the case, I'm going to find out. This could be a big bunch of bullshit, but I'm going to find out. I know this can happen to cats. My mother was really crying now. Of course she was. Hobag Handbook Chapter 2. My father continued to read. My father stopped about halfway, went through the notebook, and said, "So, you never stopped seeing Walter." The father was either me or Walter. You weren't sure which. My mother continued to cry. My father just looked at her, waiting for her to say something. I had no idea who Walter was. I was not about to ask. My mother said that she was a weak and silly girl. Where's the "it was a mistake" line? They were too young to get married. She was a different person back then. Yeah, sure. All that has nothing to do with them today. That was 25 years ago. She hasn't had any contact with Walter in over 20 years. Amy is my father's daughter, has been for 24 years. That my mother was a dumb kid back then has nothing to do with her life today. Well, that kind of explains how she's been taking the side of Jill and Amy and backing their behavior and saying it was no big deal. You do enough of these stories, guys. You hear enough of these stories, you see a pattern. And people like me are labeled a bad guy for revealing these things to the world. She loves my father, has always loved him. Yeah, I can tell how much she loves him. She has no explanation for continuing to see Walter. She never loved him, not even when they were together in high school. She was immature and stupid, so she saw him occasionally when they moved back here from college, or after college. It meant nothing. Hobag Handbook Chapter 7. My mother repeated that she was a different person back then. She needed the attention from someone like Walter back then. He always seemed to be around. Always calling her, complimenting her. She doesn't even recognize how the superficial, stupid girl she was back then. Well, payback time, Mom. My father said, so my mother didn't know who the father was, but continued to see Walter for years afterwards. My mother said, for a while. It wasn't years and years. My father told my mother to call Amy and tell her that he's not her father. It's Walter or whoever else my mother was effing back then. My mother stopped crying and sat up. She asked what good would that do. My father is Amy's father. What was the point of telling her about Walter? Walter is never going to be part of Amy's life. My father said, call her, do it now. Dad's laying down the law. My mother looked at me and told me to tell my father to stop. Amy did not need to know this. I didn't say anything. My father said Amy is going to hear from her or from him. My mother repeated that Amy didn't need to know. My father got up and said he's going to pack a bag. He already talked to Jake and he'll stay with him until he decides what to do about the house. He told my mother that he's divorcing her. She should get an attorney. High five, Daddy-O. It's about time. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Your wife's a cheater. Your daughter, who's an asshole, is not yours. And I'm sorry you're going through this. But, Papa, you got time. You still got plenty of life in you to rebuild and move on. And you got a good son and an ex-son-in-law and an uncle and a brother who's the uncle in the story. That'll have your back. And take it one day at a time. I knew my father had already decided to stay with my Uncle Jake. Alex is with me until he can get Amy and Jill out of the house. It would be too much if the three of us were at my place. Uncle Jake is my mother's brother. Oh boy. But my father and my uncle have known each other for over 30 years. They've become close friends. They got me into golf. The three of us golf together as often as we can. My mom decided it might be best to call Amy after all. Crying didn't work. Not this time, honey. Telling my dad she loved him did not work either. Telling my father it was 25 years ago did not work. Telling my father she used to be a stupid kid, but is no longer that kid did not work either. Maybe my father would relax about all this if she confessed her sins to her daughter. Maybe my father would consider that punishment enough. So my mom called Amy and told her that my father wasn't her biological father. Amy asked how my mother knew that. My mother said Amy took the DNA test. Who's the father? It must be Walter. A high school sweetheart she hadn't seen in years. Well, clearly Walter's the chattered Tyrone. I'm not buying that whole, he was always there and, acting like a beta nice guy. It was a stupid mistake of a very foolish, immature girl. Amy should understand. It was a youthful indiscretion like Amy's youthful indiscretions in college. So Amy takes after her mother. The acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. Amy asked if I knew our father wasn't our father. My mother told her I was my father's son. Amy wasn't his daughter. No, my mother didn't understand how that was possible. Or I or my father can explain it to her. Amy was very upset. She asked how my mother could be unfaithful to my father. Where is he? Let's let her talk to him. So Amy, the big cheater, who's pregnant with some other dude's baby at the moment, and cheat on this guy all through college, is giving her mom shit saying, how could you cheat on dad? When she's the same way. It's amazing. My father told Amy that as far as he's concerned, nothing changed between him and her. She's his daughter. Well, she's an asshole, but okay, that's his choice. This is about my mother's infidelity, not about Amy. Amy said that he was her father, her only father. My father asked if she had any questions for her mother. Amy said to tell her mother she doesn't want to talk to her. How could she be unfaithful to my father? You fucking hypocrite. You're unfaithful to your husband and pregnant with some other dude's baby. Youthful indiscretion was BS. My mother was a married woman at the time. Amy's indiscretions were before she and Alex were married. My mother should not compare her behavior to Amy's. Tell her mother not to call her. She's ashamed of her. They hung up. The phone call was on speaker. My mother heard all this. She was crying again. Well, your mother deserves this. My father asked my mother where her current diary is. My mother stopped crying. She looked stunned. She said my father knows all about the dumb girl she was 25 years ago. There's nothing else to find. My father repeated, where is the current diary? My father has seen enough. She's not giving that diary. My father got up to pack. I went with him, and my mother followed us to the bedroom. This is quite a holiday season here. Shit, this makes my holiday season look like a dream come true. And by the way, guys, I mentioned my cat earlier. She's doing great. She's back from the hospital. Has to have a lot of treatment done, but, time's limited. I might have a year, hopefully, but I'm grateful for that. So I've had a bad Christmas. this guy's had a bad Christmas, but I'm grateful for what I have, and it's certainly better than this fucking situation here. Anyway, please don't leave. Please don't do this to me. It was bad when she did this, but it was years ago. My father ignored her. She was really crying now. She sat in the bed and watched my father pack. He was zipping up the bag when my mother got off the bed and pulled her diary notebook from underneath her side of the mattress and gave it to my father. Back to the living room, I brought his bag. I know he's leaving regardless of what else he finds. At this point, yeah, he's leaving anyway, you know. My father started reading at the beginning. I wanted out of there. I asked if I could leave, and my mother said it was probably better if I stay. She was back crying on the couch, but was watching my father. She was very concerned. This is not going to be good. My father read for a few minutes and asked if the Simon she writes about in the diary is the vice principal at her school. My mother, looking terrified, nodded. He's 15 years younger than my mother. My mother nodded again. My father kept reading. He looked at my mother and said, "So, she's late coming home from school, not because she's been doing after-school activities with her students. She's been banging Simon in the faculty bathroom." Mom was nailing a dude 15 years younger than her at the school. And all the waterworks, and it was a mistake of a dumb girl 25 years ago. But guess what? She's still doing the same thing. This is the woman that was giving them a hard time, saying the cheating is just SCX, not a big deal. There you go. My father continued, my mother should have been a writer. Very lurid details. This could be a bestseller, or a POR movie. She could star in the movie. My mother, really crying now, told us Simon means nothing to her. Hobag Handbook, Chapter 8. He gave her a lot of attention. Well, I always tell you about attention and validation, gentlemen. It was just some of the flirting to begin with, but they got carried away. She'll break it off right now. She'll quit her job right now. She'll find teaching somewhere else or stay at home. Anything my father wants. Well, it's amazing she's willing to do all these things her husband wants now after he's packing up his shit and is ready to leave. How amazing how that works when a guy is walking away, as I tell you all guys. The most powerful thing you can do. Whoosh, I'm out of here. Ah! My father said he thinks he remembers Simon's wife from the school Christmas party. Nice woman. Simon's wife deserves to know. You're damn right Simon's wife deserves to know. My mother looked horrified and said that's between Simon and his wife. Not anymore. My father should not get involved in their marriage. Bitch, you've been getting involved with their marriage by effing her husband. My father said he's not going to get involved in their marriage, but since my mother has already put herself in the middle of their marriage, it's only right that my mother tells Simon's wife. I'm having a whole new level of respect for your dad now. Your dad's getting his pear is growing. Good. Iron balls. He got his laptop out of his bag, turned it on, and logged on. He gave it to my mother and asked my mother for Simon's last name. My mother said that she's not calling his wife, and we shouldn't either. That was Simon's business, not theirs. My father said my mother just told us she'd do anything my father wanted. This is what he wants. What's Simon's last name? We can find it in the school website. Just give us a step and give us the name. My father looked back and forth between my father and me. My mother whispered, "Please don't leave her. Will he stay if she calls and tell Simon's wife?" My father asked again for Simon's last name. My mother said that she and Simon's wife worked on the Christmas party together. She has the wife's phone number. My mother opened her phone and called. My father told her to put her on speaker. This should be good. Simon's wife answered the phone. She was happy to hear from my mother. Not for long. She asked how her Christmas was. My mother said good and asked about the wife's. Good. My father said to get on with it. My mother said there's no easy way to tell this, so she's just going to say it. Simon and my mother have been having an affair. It's over now. Silence from Simon's wife. Finally, she asked my mom why she's telling her this. My mother said my father just found out and wanted her to tell Simon's wife. The wife asked how long it's been going on. My mother was crying again. She glanced at my dad. She put her hand over her face, shading her eyes, and said since the beginning of this term. Actually, it started last spring, but they broke it off over the summer. Oh, well, since they broke it off over the summer, that makes them very good people. Is it over now? Yes, she hasn't told Simon, but won't need to now. The wife can tell him. Unless the wife wants my mother to. My mother told Simon's wife she'll do whatever the wife wants. The wife says she wants my mother to die. Who can blame her? She asked my mother to thank my father for letting her know. She called my mother a few choice names. She said something about not hiring SLUTs to be teachers and hung up on my mother. Well, Simon's in deep shit now. My mother was really crying. She asked my dad if she could call and tell the principal she won't be back after Christmas break. My father told her this is an at-fault state. He's leaving and divorcing her for infidelity. If my mother fights him, he'll call Simon to the stand. He'll call Walter if he can find him. He's sure he'll find other men in her notebooks. He's taking my mother's current diary with him when he leaves. He certainly is not going to support my mother. If she isn't working, she should figure out where she's going to get the money to live. It won't be from him. He told her to close up the laptop. Let's go. He put a notebook in with his laptop. He told my mother that his lawyer will be in touch. My mother was in the fetal position on the couch sobbing. We left. I went back to work, and he went to Uncle Jake's. I think I can speak for everybody watching this now and saying, holy fucking shit. Oh my God. This is why I had this story over here on the They Do What channel. That was Tuesday, December 26th. Well, my Tuesday, December 26th was hell too, but yours was, wow. Alex did not get the results from the prenatal test of the girl Amy is carrying until December 29th. Alex told me he called Amy when he got the test and told her the girl isn't his. He'll support his son, but not Amy and not someone else's daughter. He wants her out of his house. She cannot afford the mortgage. He will let the bank foreclose before he pays a dime more if she doesn't leave. She and Jill can go live with her mother. She should get an attorney. Alex told me Amy asked if she could explain. Are we going through the same shit that the mother said? Just let me explain. Alex just hung up on her. Amy and Jill packed up and moved in with my mother the next day, Saturday. Alex moved back into his house that night. So your mom, the cheater, Jill, the cheater, and your sister Amy, the cheater, are all under one house. Can you imagine if, like, lightning struck the house, or there was an earthquake? Well, you guys follow me there. My mother called me with the explanation about how Amy got pregnant by another man. The idea is I'm supposed to relay the explanation to Alex so he'll forgive Amy. Your mother doesn't give up, does she? These women really are delusional. Amy was staying next to my mom to answer questions. I told my mom just to put Amy on the phone. Here's the explanation. Amy arrived in paradise without a husband or child. It was like she was single again. After being tied to a baby for 3 months, she felt she was entitled to cut loose, and it went too far. Amy hung around with Jill and Jane. Amy started to get comfortable with the beach culture Jill was always talking about. I asked if Amy also walked around nude. Amy said at night on the beach, everyone ended up nude. Anyway, one thing led to another. She got drunk and high and maybe hooked up with a guy or two. Wasn't Amy on birth control? Amy said she was on the pill before going off it to get pregnant. She would have to take a different pill after she gave birth, a hormonal thing. She didn't want to change pills, so she didn't do anything. She wasn't concerned. She didn't go to the Caribbean to have sex, certainly not to get pregnant. She insisted that the guys use condoms. There may have been times when some guys did not use condom. Guys? So it could be more than two? And yeah, you're going to trust the local boys, Chad and Tyrone, to wear condoms? These guys are locals. They're out there at that bonfire probably every night, meeting up with girls on vacation or on girls' trips and hooking up with them. And do you think they give a shit? No. These guys probably have dozens, if not 100 kids walking around, like that Vince Vaughn movie. But in that movie, Vince Vaughn donated his sperm. But you get my point. She didn't care about those guys. Amy regrets all of it. She loves Alex. Amy belongs to Alex's body and soul. That's a good one. It was just a huge lapse of judgment. The beach culture is very seductive. Yeah, she got sucked in by the tractor beam of the beach culture, and the tractor beam of the beach culture pulled off all her clothes, spread them in the sand, and pulled in Chad and Tyrone. It's not her fault. No, it's the beach culture and the tractor beam. She went insane for a week. I should understand that. Jill went insane for 5 months. Please explain to Alex it meant nothing. He's the father of their daughter, not some guy at the beach. I beg to differ. Alex will come to love the daughter as much as he loves his son. She misses Alex so much and their son the whole time she was at the beach. She knows she should not have been that stupid. Too late. But the loving wife and mother were back for good. Alex does not have to worry about her ever again. She'll be faithful from now on. Make sure Alex understands she loves him and will do anything to get him back home where he belongs. Well, he could really have fun with her with that, but no, thanks. I should convince Alex to come home to his family. I asked Alex if he wanted to hear the explanation about Amy getting pregnant in the Caribbean. He looked at me as if I was crazy. He said, hell no. So here's where we are at the beginning of January 2024. Jill and Amy, Alex's son, are living with my mother. Birds of a feather living together. Hard for my sister to fault my mother for the infidelity that led to Amy's birth when Amy did the exact same thing. Exactly. Alex is back in his house to see his son regularly. My father is my uncle's, but is looking for his own permanent place. My mother and Amy will be served with divorce papers after New Year's. Alex cannot divorce Amy for infidelity because all Alex knew was that Amy cheated in college before they were married. Okay. But then again, the island thing, her carrying somebody else's child is proof that she's a cheater. Jill has already been served. Because of their infidelity, the divorce terms are very favorable to us husbands. Everything should go in our favor, but there's always the judge to worry about. Don't count your chickens until they hatch, my friend. My father, Uncle Alex, and I meet on Sunday nights for dinner and to talk about what's going on in our lives. Stick together, my man, because you can bet your ass the girls are sticking together. These dinners are now one of the most important things I do each week. Other than talk about the status of our divorces and how Jill's pregnancy is going, we are no longer talking about our wives. They're not that interesting anymore. Just SLUTS, we meet on the way where we are now. The end. The end for now, chapter 4. So, that's fucked up. Well, bro, I'm sorry you're going through all this bullshit, and I know we're never going to agree about the golf situation. Come back to the golf story, but okay. All I can say is, do not cave for a second. Do not buy into the tears and the drama and the promises and the I'm sorries and the I was a mistake crap. And you have a choice whether you're going to have anything to do with your mother or sister at this point. It's your business. Frankly, I sure as hell wouldn't. They're all assholes and they're liars, and I can go on for 10 more minutes about what kind of people they are. But it's your choice. At the end of the day, your family, regardless. Although, your sister isn't. So, well, she's your half-sister, technically. But anyhow, be strong. Take it one day at a time. All you guys stick together. And to your dad out there, good job to you for growing a pair and handling it well. And I wish you absolutely the best, man. And you to the dad, you still have plenty of life to live, and you can move on from her. But this is terrible. His whole life's been a lie. His daughter isn't his wife's a cheater. Not just that cheater in the past, but currently, this would destroy most people. But you know what? Find that strength in you to carry on. It's there. Take it one day at a time. There's going to be roller coaster of emotions. Some days all you guys may think, maybe I'll take them back. Maybe they'll be different. Maybe this, maybe that. Or standing for the kids. Don't. You can't. Otherwise, you'll be like a lot of these guys in these stories that take them back, and the same crap happens all over again. So, I'm sure, call me crazy, but I'm sure we'll be hearing more of this story down the road. And if it's good and warranted, send me the story. Don't just give me silly updates that aren't really relevant. I want to hear good stuff, and as the audience here. So, guys, if you want to hear more stuff that's relevant in here, please do share in the comment section. But also give this guy and all the guys in the story some support. They fucking need it. That is it for today, guys. Be sure to comment down, like I said before. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.